Growing up, I really didn't have much desire to go to things like anime club because the folks there would watch things outside of the cool shonen stuff I liked that I took a lot of pride in. I thought it just wasn't cool to watch things like shoujo, slice of lifes and whatnot, while being a mega fan of things like Dragon Ball Z, Toonami showing me a lot of so-called masculine shows, and Bleach ushering me into a lot more anime out there. But in 2006, something changed that. And it not only opened my mind to all of the genres of anime out there, but it also became a founding pillar to the person I am today, 20 years later. That was the day I opened the door to the Ouran High School Host Club. Today, I'm wondering two things. How did Ouran High School Host Club manage to retain its status as one of my all-time favorite anime? And am I bold enough to say it is in fact my number one? See, today, Ouran can feel very dated, is the word I'll use, but also not. Let me first speak to the uninitiated and briefly explain what Ouran is. Essentially, an honor student, also so-called a commoner like you and me, manages to get to an elite school for rich kids. But they end up accidentally breaking an expensive vase, leading them to be in an arrangement with a group of pretty boys where they will forgive her debt if she poses to be a fellow boy member of their host club, if she gets a certain amount of women to request her. Now, that whole gender bending and rich and poor premise alone was not exactly what grabbed me, and to be honest, I can't remember what made me give the show a chance in the first place, especially something this pretty looking, since it seemed it was much more catered to the female audience, so to speak. But when I put my ego aside and finally watched it, I found what was one of the most funny and heartfelt things I'd ever seen in media. And I watched a lot of stuff growing up. Trust me, my mom hated it. But I think what drew me in right away is perhaps the most colorful cast of characters I still, to this day, have ever seen. Sure, there were some stereotypes, hell, even the show itself addresses that, but from right out of the gate, the series establishes there is more to these archetype boys than the surface lets on, and man, is that the truth the more you learn about them. The thing I think many introverts like me perhaps will relate to a lot, though, is the MC, who is also an introvert, Haruhi, and her being thrust into this world of discomfort, where she will have to come out of her shell. She went from her nose in the books and taking care of herself and her dad, to now having to cosplay, go on adventures, and attend to others on top of her own world. Her very matter-of-fact character is such a hilarious contrast with the club, but her having to get out there is done in a way that isn't so dramatic and obvious about pointing out her growth like other shows do. Every episode, you see a slight justification to everything she is doing, being about more than just her debt and paying that back, but actually being of genuine help to people. You're not gonna see this continuous arc of her and characters realizing how much they've grown, but rather getting crumbs of it as Haruhi does more and more with the host club. The most obvious example of this amongst the host club members were the twins Hikaru and Karu, who at the time of this show airing, fangirls were super up the wazoo about gushing about them when I was personally a honey senpai boy, but I digress. See, the twins have a backstory that becomes very clear over time. Growing up, they did not feel they each had their own identity, and while they never really felt alone because they had each other, they also were more alone than ever, not really allowing others the chance to connect with them. Haruhi, however, quickly becomes someone they grow attached to for many reasons, and one of those including her being able to easily tell which twin is which, and what makes each of them unique. But what's neat is that the show doesn't really flaunt this character development in ways other shows do, where it's tearful, dramatic, and an arc to watch, because most of the characters have already gone through their major transformations before Haruhi even came along. Honey is the club's boy Lolita, and my favorite character when I first watched this, openly embracing the stuff he loves, like cake and cute things when Haruhi meets him, but before that, he really struggled to embrace those things, and I'm actually realizing years later, oh my gosh, he and I have that in common. Thinking about all the stuff I said earlier, I'm literally just realizing that as I'm recording this. His cousin Mori is also in the club, you know, the guy that gave Haruhi strawberries. And he is loyal to Honey always and simply wants what's best for him. So seeing Honey embrace his passions like that makes him happy. Kyoya, the real ringleader behind the host club, is a cold, calculating businessman who doesn't hesitate to wear this devilish smile on his face while having his own self-interest at top of mind, unlike previously where it was just a facade to network with people for his family. He and the other host club members went through these character arcs we would usually think the main character caused, but someone beat Haruhi to it. And that would be who maybe the most tangible reason Ouran became a favorite show of mine. The host club's president, Tamaki Suo. See, Ouran High School Host Club shouldn't work with how the character arcs are not happening so much in real time and building up to something as other shows do. But I think it works because of Haruhi's discovery of the world around her, giving us fresh eyes and takes on things. And upon a rewatch, that word's going to come up too, is replayability. Seeing the real reason this show is so liberating feeling is because of Tamaki. Right out of the gate, he seems like an obnoxious person who will be the most lovable himbo of sorts, which, I mean, both of those are true, but after watching all of it, you actually see that Tamaki is really the glue that holds the club together, along with somewhat of the backbone that is the reason of it in the first place. Tamaki is the one who managed to get these boys through their character arcs to become the likable cast that they are now. The club makes fun of him, belittles him, teases him, but deep down, they all love him because of the truth. He is the heart and soul of the club and what this show is about. In his words, having a good time. Yes, we get things like sincere confessions, breakthroughs, hard truths, potential romance, and so much more through the actions of the club in each and every episode, but also some of the best laughs mixed into all that. Comedy that truly embraces the anime medium by having music of ridiculous elegance. Seriously, what is this soundtrack, guys? There's so many perfect tracks that encompasses the setting and mood of the story. Characters with wide, exaggerated reactions that only anime allows, and great animation by Studio Bones that holds up even today, in my opinion. But just the scenarios and how intensely hilarious they can get. Things like the horrific idea of Honey Senpai waking up to see his favorite stuffed animal is ruined. Tamaki being tricked to dress like Haruhi, thinking he'll fool everyone. Someone requesting Haruhi as the club triggers what is perhaps the funniest episode of anime I have ever seen. It all just never gets old to me because of how fast I feel like I am friends with these characters. And yes, some of the things in this show that they thought might be funny at the time perhaps didn't age well to some, but I think that's another reason that it makes it feel so raw and free looking back on it 20 years later. It was simply a place to just let go of the real world around us and embrace having a good time with this club while also giving us things that we can't ignore that make us human. As much as I love this show, there's something about it that's hurt me for so long. While it ends on a somewhat solid note, there were so many things just left unsaid or unfinished because we only were able to tease them in this one season that the anime got. Studio Bones never got to fully adapt the manga by Bisco Hattori, which at the time, that wasn't really that rare of a circumstance. But 20 years later, we've seen so many of those shows in those years manage to get continuations or a full adaptation of some kind. Ouran never got this treatment though, and left many of us fans hoping it would. But why do we want that so badly? Why do I want that? Why do I love Ouran High School Host Club so much? Why is it so important to me? What keeps me coming back to it again and again and again and again? I'm really surprised to say a show that was, one I was very reluctant to get into going in, would become my most rewatched show of all time. But even with that, it still needed to do something to be named a contender for my all-time favorite anime. And I think it boils down to that beginning of this whole video. Honey embracing the things he loves. Mori and his loyalty being all that he needs. The twins letting others connect with who they are. Kyoya painting outside the frame he was given. Haruhi willing to accept help from others. Tamaki's genuine joy in creating happiness for people. It all planted the seeds to what would shape my life going forward. Passion creates a will to live. There are so many ways of going about life which will be unique to each individual, but once you give up on yourself and who you are, that is when it all becomes hollow. The host club's job is to make everyone feel accepted, heard, and just have a good time being themselves. Maybe sometimes to an excruciating degree to make the guests have fun. Haruhi was an objective introvert who thought the only way of reaching her goal was to focus on that alone, but soon realizes all these experiences she's been having makes her a more understanding person that she can apply to her pursuit. We have to enjoy the journey before we reach the end. Make memories that we can look back on. Make the friends that will acknowledge us for who we are. And even when reaching our goal, still continue to embrace what makes us happy while we keep moving forward. Because if you aren't happy, then you're not living. I admit, Ouran has a couple of weaker episodes I always want to skip maybe a bit, and things that stop it from being perfect, but it doesn't stop me from being drawn back to this show over and over and over again. The lesson it brings, the laughs it gives me, and the community I have found through it. Yes, the story may not be necessarily complete in anime form, but I'm glad it is being recognized by many for its 20th anniversary, and I hope by September, aka when the anime ended, we will have some sort of reveal of a complete telling of its story, where you do get those emotional character arcs and the things teased getting resolved. But for now, I love Ouran High School Host Club. And I know it's always there waiting for me, and to give me a good time, and to remember the things that make me, me. I will always feel at home with these characters and the shenanigans that they get into. I've made so many Ouran videos over the years, but I never really thanked Ouran. At least I don't feel like I have. So one more time, 20 years later after the first episode aired, I just want to thank them. Thank you, Hattori, for giving us these characters. Thank you, Studio Bones, for adapting it in such an amazing way. Thank you to the cast that brought these characters to life, both sub and dub, by the way. They're both amazing. But just thank you, Ouran. Thank you, Ouran High School Host Club, for giving me what just might be my all-time favorite anime.